Welcome back. The Sunbourne Floating Hotel, the North Mole Tanks and the new government housing estate at Ariel Farm were all discussed this week at a lively session of the Development and Planning Commission. An extension to No. 6 Convent Place to house government officers was also discussed, with the committee concluding that the project amounted to a huge improvement to the current use of the site.
There were several animated discussions at the John Mackintosh Hall earlier.
Keep on changing the plans every time new plans come out of this already.
The Sunbourne Floating Hotel saw comments exchanged between tenants of Tradewinds and the committee.
There's a difference between consultation over a particular project, it could be this one or anyone, and micromanaging it. No, in other words, in relation to the Sunbourne, there have been a considerable number of meetings between the government and the residents, and both commercial and residential in that sense. And many of the comments that were made have been taken on board, in particular in relation to having a huge car park in front of Tradewinds, which was the original proposal, just a huge concrete reclaimed area, which is a car park. That has not been removed completely. In fact, what we were told this morning is that there's hardly going to be any reclamation, that there will be an area which will be constructed on piles or on stilts, there will be water flowing underneath, that there will be a huge area in front, a large area of sea will be retained, where small boats will be able to berth. So really, it is really a complete transformation from the original project that was envisaged. Remember, this project came to the DPC for guidance and advice only, and what has emerged today is that most of the guidance, most of the advice has actually been taken on board by the government.
Today's meeting saw a number of strong contributions from the floor, including one made on behalf of tenants at a property in Europa Road.
Our position is that you all try to consider planning permission, so there was no point at all for this.
We'll record your views, we'll discuss it, we'll decide, and if you want to take it to another legal matter, then you're all right.
It's been a lively discussion today, but that's part of what this is all about. I mean, the whole idea of making the planning process open and accessible to the public is that the public can turn up and say what they think, and they may have different views to the views expressed by members of the Commission, myself included, my colleagues, the Chairman, and they come forward and they express the views. In some cases they might be supportive and in agreement, and in other cases they might not. But that creates debate, it creates discussion, it creates an awareness of what's happening in the planning system, and that can only be good for the democratic process.
For a second time, the government housing project at Ariel Farm was also presented for comments and advice, following some modifications. The project now includes commercial units on the ground floor.
This is why we do this. I mean, the government puts it forward to the DPC, we get feedback, we get valuable advice, and in many cases that advice is taken on board. I mean, in other cases it may not be possible. I mean, the view was expressed that these buildings were too tall. But look, the reality is in Gibraltar, where we have such a shortage of land, there are some areas where it can be justified that a building can go up a certain number of stories, bearing in mind obviously the question of the air exclusion zone and the fact that you can't build very high in certain areas because of the airport and the runway. But all that, bearing all that in mind, this is a housing project. It's good for those people on the housing waiting list. It's going to create a series of affordable homes, which for our people, it's part of the manifesto commitment of the government. The DPC again has put forward different views and different suggestions for improvement, and the government will now consider them.
Another proposal which had some issues but has been presented for a second time is a project to expand the government's offices at No. 6 Convent Place, in the area where the car park is at the moment.
It obviously creates a different working environment for the people who actually go there every day and have to work in that building, because at present it's very, very crammed.
So, No. 6 staff, or are you thinking of bringing in another department for it?
Well, it depends on how much office space the government ends up with. It could be a case of simply redeploying the existing staff to the new space that is going to be created, or it may be a case of bringing in people from the outside now that we have more space and deploying them in that building. We haven't actually decided that yet.
Among other items discussed in a busy agenda was an application to rebuild the North Mole tanks, following the dramatic explosion and fire of May 2011. The Environmental Safety Group is arguing that an environmental impact assessment should be carried out. The Office of the Town Planner takes the view that this isn't necessary. The Minister for Planning now has 28 days to make a decision on whether or not an environmental impact assessment is necessary.
A barge carrying stones from Portugal arrived at the Gibraltar port this week. The Fen Mirage was escorted by police vessels after Guardia Civil launches came into Gibraltar waters to photograph the vessel.
The delivery of cement, rocks, sand and other construction materials to Gibraltar has been the subject of media interest over the last few months because of Spain's decision to impose a trade embargo on these goods crossing the border. The Spanish government has justified this on environmental grounds, leaving the Gibraltar government, as well as private companies, with no choice but to look elsewhere to purchase. Today's delivery from Portugal is the first known delivery of rocks by sea since the ban was announced. The Foreign Office has confirmed that the actions of the Guardia Civil Rio Tormes were an unlawful challenge to the passage of the Fen Mirage. A diplomatic protest will be lodged by London to Madrid.
Back to London now, and the Gibraltar Day in the capital has this year seen a busy schedule. Apart from the traditional receptions, the event has also served as a platform for a number of presentations. Former Bishop Charles Caruana is recognised by the Polish president, with local playwright and musician Elio Cruz receiving a Mayor's Award.
The late Bishop Emeritus Charles Caruana was honoured in a presentation at the Polish embassy. The ambassador, Witold Sobków, conferred the Knight Cross of the Order of Merit of the Republic of Poland to the late bishop for the services he provided to Poland and its citizens over many years. The award aims to recognise his work in promoting Poland's history and links with the ROC, and as the moving force behind the memorial of General Sikorski, which was unveiled earlier in the year as part of the 70th anniversary of the general's death. The ambassador described Bishop Caruana as a true friend, saying his legacy lives on and would always be remembered. The posthumous award was accepted by the bishop's siblings, Conchita Ramirez and Joe Caruana, who were visibly moved by the gesture.
The feeling is indescribable. It's impossible to describe the humility that this brings to the memory of a brother. In fact, I have, at the moment, difficulty in speaking because I'm so moved to hear, people who have not known him, to talk about him, that the things he did have travelled so far and remembered today is no small thing.
Representing the government, Education Minister Gilbert Ligudi said this was a huge honour for Gibraltar.
The bishop was, as everybody knows, quite an extraordinary man. He was loved, he was respected, he was admired by the whole of the community, regardless of religious persuasion. And to see that the recognition and the admiration extends well beyond the shores of Gibraltar is really quite gratifying for the whole of Gibraltar. So we're very, very pleased and very grateful to His Excellency the President of Poland for bestowing this award on our bishop.
The setting for the Mayor's Gold Award presentation was at Our Lady of Dolores Servite Church in Fulham. Here, the traditional Thanksgiving Mass was celebrated by the Bishop Ralph Heskert. The church's links with the ROC are numerous, having played an important pastoral role for many Gibraltarian families evacuated to London during the Second World War, and since 2006, home to a replica statue of Our Lady of Europe. So it was fitting that Tony Lima awarded local playwright and founder member of the musical troupe Los Trovadores, Elio Cruz, with a gold award here. Mr. Cruz was responsible for writing the lyrics to the song Virgencita de Europa back in 1958, which has since become one of the ROC's most popular anthems.
Don't ever believe anybody who says, because they've been away from Gibraltar for a long time, they've forgotten what it is to be a Gibraltarian. Don't believe them. Yo soy tan llanito hoy como cuando el día que nací.
Elio Cruz was unable to travel to Gibraltar earlier in the year to receive the collective award together with the other members of the band, in recognition of their long-standing contribution to music locally. Mr. Cruz was also presented with a small replica of the statue of the patroness of Gibraltar and with a commemorative coin to mark the occasion.
And Gibraltar House in London was the setting for an investiture service by the governor. Sir Adrian Johns presented the British Empire Medal to Hector Romero in recognition for his work and commitment to athletics locally. Speaking to GBC, Hector Romero said it was an honour to receive the BEM, but believed that the award was a team effort, something he could not have achieved without the support of the youth coaches, athletes and officials, both past and present. Hector first got involved in athletics at the age of 13. He not only broke national records, but also represented Gibraltar at a number of Commonwealth Games in the 1970s. This award not only recognises his achievements, but also his role as mentor over a 40-year period, both coaching and encouraging youngsters that joined the sport. And also this week, the convent made another diplomatic formal complaint to Madrid following a protracted incursion by a Spanish oceanographic vessel in British Gibraltar territorial waters. Pedestrian queues at the frontier flared up, and the inaugural Jabunco Gibraltar International Literary Festival was launched. For the rest of this week's news, you can head over to our website, gbc.gi/news. Tune into Radio Gibraltar and GBC Television throughout the week for the very latest local news. And you can also follow us on Twitter and like us on our Facebook page. Thank you very much for watching. From the team, good night.